Shop. I'm Chetan. With me today is Chris. Chris, say hello again.
Hello again.
So, Chris, what's the worst comic book costume in the comic book industry?
The comic book industry. So there's two types of costumes. There's the costumes that are not functional, like they're so bad because they're so not functional, and then there's just ones that don't look good.
Okay, so now you got me curious. The first one,
The first
give
one,
me an example.
anything created in the 90s for a woman.
Sue Richards' costume comes to mind.
There's that one. There's a few that like were just so not functional.
Yeah, but that was, please check out our previous episode, 90s boom or bust. And costumes was a bust in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean there was a few okay ones. There was, and I always liked when somebody would create a really ridiculous costume thing, but then try and incorporate the costume into the character. A great example is Spawn's cape. It's a ridiculous thing, but then eventually Todd McFarlane said, "Well, it's sort of a sentient thing, sort of like what's his name? How come the other sentient cape in Marvel Universe?
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange's cape is sentient.
Yeah,
Again, on its own as a cape, pointless. Like, well,
yeah.
capes, I'll tell you, I hate capes. I've never seen a comic book character that benefits from a cape.
Superman.
Nope.
Batman does because he
Really?
uses to cover, well, before, remember, he used to use it as a shield for bullets and stuff like that.
I mean, I maybe a bit of that. Again, I think that's sort of writing, like making a sentient cape. Like the whole reason I believe capes exist are to make drawing the character more fun, being able to hide things, and also like
I think
when a
so.
character's flying, if the cape is like in the back doing this, it gives you a better sense of movement. But as
I
far as
wonder
like,
if, but even going back to let's say 30s and 40s and that time era, um, the wearing a cape, like the Sherlock Holmes type of thing, that was long gone at that time.
yeah, and yeah, I'm not talking about obviously like if you're in the winter and you have a cape because it keeps you
No,
warm.
no, 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 no. What I'm thinking is why did they even put capes on? Like, let's say for when Siegel and Schuster were creating Superman, why did they decide to put a cape on him?
I think it's a drawing thing. I think it's a thing that sort of gives your character speed, that sort of gives them I use like in Blue Orchid, I use her hair, which is pointless. Her hair would be the worst thing in the world to fight with. And she's also got a belt that has a knot and a big long end of it that always trails off. And I use those specifically as directional tools when I'm drawing.
Yes, so that makes sense. Yes, because now thinking of your character, yes, I see that.
It's completely point like her hair would be horrible to fight monsters with.
But then again, when I'm drawing, let's say, when I'm doodling and stuff, when I'm drawing Superman, I have to draw the cape because I know Alex Ross and those guys got away from the cape and things like that. But for me, certain characters I just because it's been etched into my head that these guys have capes and stuff. And you're right, it is fun to draw.
That's exactly it. It's fun to draw. It's also visually interesting. And
It
so
is, yeah.
I don't hate them in that I don't think they're bad. Like artistically, I think they're great. Batman's cape is so cool. Like
Yeah.
there's some amazing stuff that you can do with Batman's cape as an artist. There's a lot of cool stuff that artists have done. And even like you saying, like blocking the bullets is kind of a creative thing. But if we were to actually be in a street fight, he would get his ass kicked every single night because of that stupid cape.
But here's the thing, and in a comic book form, some of the capes work. But if you look at it in movie and TV shows, example, Batman the movies, the cape worked. But then on the other hand, you had Spawn, where they went overboard with the cape
Yep.
in the movie.
Although you have to admit, the early Batman movies, the costumes didn't really work because they were so.
They were so bulky, yeah.
And so part of that was the cape. Like
You're
you have to
right, yeah.
attach a cape to a human being. And so it's like you just end up, Batman can't turn his head because he's got this giant thing that's keeping his suit together, like football equipment almost. So that's what I mean, like the part one where it's like it's just it's a bad costume because it's just functionally, if you were to actually have this hero, both a woman fighting a war in a thong and a dude with a giant piece of extra fabric,
Yeah,
pointless. Like it's only
but
going to
then, but
serve you
then
poorly.
we're also going back to the '90s, where the best part is every character had every gadget that was possible on their body. You
Okay, you know
know,
what? We can blame the 90s, but we can also probably blame Batman in the 70s.
the TV show and Batman in the '70s, but he had the utility belt. That's fine. But in the '90s, the guy had like four different armbands with weapons on it, on the leg like 10 different armbands with every single knife you could think of. It just how many more weapons can I put on this guy?
I actually liked it when they went overboard, cartoonish.
Yeah,
Like I agree with you. Like if it's sort of a realistic thing and you're like, okay, this is just like, how can this guy, he's been walking in the jungle for 3 days, he would be exhausted with all the stuff that he's got strapped to his body. But on the other hand, I think I kind of like the idea too when it's just like it's just you have a million, like Iggy is almost a great example of that, where you have unlimited firepower
yes.
happening all the time. And I kind of like that. Like I like I find that there's a line, like you either have to be realistic about what you can
Or
carry
just go completely overboard.
or just this is stupid. But
Yeah.
it works.
So
And
now, so what was your second part?
so the second part is just badly like bad looking costumes, like things that just didn't look good.
Now, anyone comes to mind to you? I know one does to me. So,
I mean, Polka Dot Man, was that his name?
polka dot man. Oh yes, yes, yes.
I mean, I know James Gunn sort of tried to make him cool in the
Yeah.
Guardians movies, but if you look at that original character design,
Oh, it was
kind
bad. It was bad.
Dazzler maybe a little.
I remember, and this is the big one. And I remember even as a kid buying the book, going, "Why would you even do this costume?" And I remember George Perez, who's Spanish descent, said he refused to draw that character because it was just a bad stereotype vibe from Justice League.
Yeah,
He had
that's
the yellow, green, red costume that just jumpsuit or whatever it was, and it was just a bad stereotype.
yeah,
And it wasn't even just bad stereotype; it was just bad costume.
yeah. Okay, I'll float out a controversial one out here and see maybe people will comment, maybe you'll have an opinion. X-Men costumes not good. They've never
X
really
Men.
like in general when they're wearing their own sort of civvies, like wearing their own clothes, totally good.
Yeah.
But any uniform they've ever made for the X-Men is always not. It's not poorly designed, but you kind of look at it and go, particularly blue
I,
and yellow Wolverine.
but that's become a classic now.
But again, so is the Superman cape.
Yeah. Yeah, the blue and yellow Wolverine. But then again, yeah, you're right. That was a bad costume. That was
And
a
it's
bad costume.
like I never understood why the X-Men would want to get into uniforms anyway. Like there was sort of this there was something about the writing of the characters that made them very human. And then to sort of put them in a military thing, like that was to me always
Yeah.
sort of a weird thing because like Xavier was supposed to be this teacher teaching them to use their powers. There was conflicts between people in that, but then all of a sudden, every once in a while, they'd strap into suits for no particular
Yeah.
reason to fight their villains, as opposed to having their own individual thing for their characters, like having their own suits. Like just they had this X-Men uniform, and it never really made sense to me in comics. Like I always preferred them when they were in their like
Yeah, you're right because they had a DX on their somewhere on their body, and yeah, you're right. It was like a branded logo.
yeah, it was always weird to me that the X-Men had uniforms.
But X-Men, except for Wolverine, I don't remember Dazzler had some hit and miss costumes and stuff like that. But I mean, but again, when you're named Dazzler, do you really, do, you know, what do you expect? You know?
And to some degree, you also look at the era. Like, I mean, we could look at anything from the '70s disco era
Yeah,
and go,
that's
well,
it.
that's kind of a lame costume. But it's like of the time, it was kind of hip and cool. So, I'm going to give a little bit of a break on that, like sort of saying like, you know, '70s and like, whatever era you want to make fun of their clothing line, maybe they got it right for the era. And so now it just looks a little wacky because of the time difference.
Now, mentioning time difference, and again, we're going back to the 90s. I wonder what made DC think of the red and blue Superman costumes. You know, with the lightning bolt and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That was just a bad, bad design.
What about Superboy? Remember Superboy in that era where they gave him like jeans and a jean jacket, like a
Yeah,
jacket?
even that, and they give him like the sunglasses to wear, and I think they're trying to be hip with the younger crowd,
Yeah.
and it back. I hate to say it, it did not work. It did
And
not
then
work.
speaking of Superman here, sort of heroes, Supergirl, skirt or no skirt?
I like the skirt because
Okay.
that in the even in the 60s and later, if it's done well, it works. But again, it's that fanboy art and that type of stuff that makes it look bad, but it works.
Yeah. And I always, the one costume, I mean, if we're going to talk worst, I always thought sort of one of the most thoughtful costumes was Spider-Man
Oh,
because
Spider-Man costume. Yeah.
he had a reason for it. Like he wanted to protect his identity. And early on, it kind of, it feels like something like, okay, he kind of sewed it or somebody made it for him. Like there isn't this
No,
sort of like magical quality about it. It's just sort of, it looks,
his costume is great. I mean, wherever you go for the forget about all the gimmick ones they did, the armor one, all that stuff. But going back to the traditional blue and red one, and even the black one, they're they work.
and they were part of the story.
Yes.
Like there was always sort of like the idea that like if you read really early Spider-Man, like early origin Spider-Man's, the idea was he had to make that suit, and the idea that he was like got into a wrestling thing, and that was part of his gimmick as that too. And then even the black costume that became part of the story. Like there's all this sort of like Spider-Man always sort of did costumes well. Like if there was a change of costume, it was for a reason. Even the silly armor ones, they generally like, okay, well, he's working with Iron Man now. So Iron Man makes him a costume. So it's like it
No,
kind of
no, no.
makes
This is
sense.
in the comics. They had the diamond one. Like they had a couple of really bad ones.
But did
This
they at
is not.
least suit the story?
No,
Like were they involved with the story?
I stopped reading Spider-Man at that
Yeah,
time, so I
I
don't
didn't read
I
those
don't
either.
even
So
remember. Now here's a character which at first when I was reading it as a teenager and it made me think, why does he have a costume like this? But I like it, but it doesn't fit the whole thing, but it's still a unique costume. Guy Gardner. He
I
has
figured
the
you'd pick.
collar, he has the collar and the turtleneck.
The advantage of Guy Gardner is the bigger a jerk you make him look, the more it's on brand.
Well, come on, if you have a bowl cut turtleneck and a collar, yes, you know,
Like if you make him look sort of like a dorky jerk,
yeah,
it's perfect.
it is. It works. It works.
Yeah.
It's a costume at first. You look at it, and go, every other Green Lantern has a standard costume. Like you said about the X-Men, like a military costume. And this guy has his own costume, which, yeah, you're right. He's a jerk and it works for him. But it was just at first going, what's his costume like? As a kid, I remember that was one of the reaction going, wow, he has a different costume.
I'll be honest, the Green Lantern costumes are kind of silly to me.
I liked them, but I like no, I like their cost. I like the Green Lantern costume.
I mean, often it's like a big skin tight leotard,
It is, yeah. But then again, all superheroes have that.
which is maybe something to think about. Why do
Yeah.
superheroes always wear like, I mean, obviously it's like to show off muscle and stuff, but
But someone like what you just brought up, someone like Superman, I mean, Spider-Man, it makes sense to, because he's jumping around and all that stuff. Same thing with the Flash. You need a costume that's skin tight and stuff like that because you're running fast, and you don't want something flopping all over the place.
So I have a question for you about, because I know you're a big Flash reader, and I had
Yes.
just finished reading some early Flash stuff. Did they ever get rid of the stupid thing where it comes out of his ring?
In the, I think for a while they did. Then I think they brought it back because that's a classic thing with the Flash. Now again, I haven't read Flash in a long, long time. So, in the new stuff, I don't know. I know when Jeff Johns was writing it, he did bring that back.
And it's not that I think that the ring thing is a stupid thing. I just remember when I was reading the old comics, every single time, every issue, there'd be one almost full page describing the science of how this
Yes,
thing
science
fit in
of
his
yes.
ring. And it's like, I don't need to know that anymore. I've read enough. I'm willing to accept it came out of his ring.
Okay, but here's a question for you and anyone who's a Flash fan. And this is as a kid, I always thought about it. Okay, he has his ring, he pops the button, the costume comes out, right?
Yeah.
And it's like compression or whatever. How does
Yep.
he put it back in?
Well, they talk about it like it reacts. It's a chemical reaction to the air.
No, putting it back in.
Putting it back in, my if I'm going to put like a stupid theory that probably doesn't make sense, he has some kind of liquid that he puts on it, and it's another chemical reaction that shrinks it again.
Would you believe we're talking about this?
And this podcast, yes.
Yes. And as a kid, I always thought about that, going, okay, it's a cool idea, as a kid going, hey, press a button on your ring, the costume comes out, he runs and, first of all, where does he put his clothes? Which is another question. His civilian clothes, Superman has the phone booth, but where does he put his clothes?
Yeah.
You know, and he changes then. How does he put it back in? At least for Spider-Man, they show him changing and stuff like that. And he has, and one thing I liked about Spider-Man was they show him putting his clothes in his backpack and stuff like that.
Yeah, they'd
And
often
sometimes,
have or webbing. You'd have some
yeah,
webbing up
webbing, yeah,
on a
and
building,
you,
and he put his clothes up
yeah,
there.
and you'll put it on the side or something. Yeah, that's it. And I like that because that explained it. Whereas a lot of the other characters, they never had that.
And it's funny because it always affected the toys. Because every once in a while they put out a toy like a Superman that could turn into Clark Kent, and then but there'd always be sort of like what would you like? They would try and almost like a transformer, like shove it in his back or something like that. They never could make it because they never made it work in the comic books either. So there was never
Yeah.
this whole idea of like, oh well, when Superman changed me, Superman had a backpack or something underneath his cape. You'd be like, well, there's his civvies, right?
Well, that's the same thing like example is, and one thing I liked about the movies, and I'm not a huge reader on this in the comics, but in the movies, Iron Man, his costume made sense in the movies, where in the comic book, I remember he used to have a briefcase or something where he put the costume, but the briefcase would have been like this thick,
And
you know,
heavy.
heavy.
Yeah.
Where in with what the movies it explains it with the nanotech and all that stuff that you
Or
know
that they fly off like he's got satellites and they shoot down or something.
that's it. You shoot down and stuff like that. Yeah.
The other costumes that are worth mentioning that I think were handled okay was the Fantastic Four.
Oh, they had great costumes. They
And
had great costumes.
just the idea that it's like, it's mentioned many times that like, oh, well, Reed Richards had to create, scientifically create fabrics that would suit their specialties.
Yes.
So it wasn't just like, oh, well, they made costumes and well, this one just happens to stretch.
Now here's a costume I'm going to mention, and as a boy, yes, I could see why they had it, but as a working costume, the character Power Girl. Do you remember her?
Yes.
Wherever it had certain areas where it was cut off, it's like, okay, yes, you understand why they had it, but on the other hand, it's like, you know, okay, it makes no sense. I mean, it makes sense why, to sell books, yes,
Yes.
to get teenage boys interested in this character, but
Yep.
otherwise, just non-fictional costume.
Yeah. I mean, that fits under what I was talking about earlier. It's like, every 90s girl's costume seems to be that way. So it's like, doesn't make any sense. Like when you get to like Witchblade, like some of those image characters, it's like how does that even, the only one, Gen 13. I don't know if you remember that comic book.
Yes, I like their characters.
They kind of made fun of that. Because part of it
Did
was
they?
when they got their powers, they sort of got these like stupid physiques that were like, and they were like, oh, now we're the stereotypical, you know, Uber babes and stuff like that. So I'm trying to think. Vampirilla also had a pretty silly costume.
Oh, that just, I mean, again, you're selling comics to boys,
Yep.
yeah, Vampirella. I don't know if you really call it a costume. Same thing with Red Sonja. I mean, it's, a babe with a skimpy little costume with sword, in her hand.
Yeah. It's funny because every once in a while, like Psylocke was an okay character, but her costume was pretty pointless.
Yeah, it was. Depends on which Psylocke. I mean, they had her as a British lady, then as a, Chinese lady or a Japanese, and all her costumes are bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And it all falls under that same category of like, it's funny too, because like Psylocke didn't work, but what's her name from Daredevil? Elektra. I saw her costume work. It was
Electro,
kind of skimpy, but it was not
no, but
ridiculous.
hers worked. Hers worked. And
Yeah.
Daredevil, even Daredevil's early costume. I mean, the golden yellow one. It's a. I mean, okay, it's the '60s, but still, that was a weird looking costume.
So Batman wears all black. So why did they make Robin look like a target?
Well, because remember, they made a comment in it was in Teen Titans in Titans show.
Okay.
They made a comment about that. He goes, and Robin was joking to the one of the older Robins, saying, he goes, "Have you ever wondered why they make us wear yellow?" He goes, "Yeah, because to get the bullets going to us, not him."
So true. It's like, let's get this young child and
Yeah,
dress them up as a target.
it was something like that. It was he made a comment like I don't remember the exact comment, but it made me laugh and going, "Never thought about that."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a few that are sort of,
So mentioning that, Robin's costume, would you say it's a bad costume or a good costume?
so I mean, it depends on the era. They've been different ones, but like
No,
this,
and let's go. You and I are traditional costumes. Forget about the,
it's not a great
later
costume.
crap. I
It's
like it.
again, it's design wise, it's got bright colors, it's got a cape to, help you draw it better. It's got everything you want, but little tiny green booties and a pair of like short shorts.
I remember the TV show, the movie was on, the '60s movie with Adam West and Burt Ward, and I
Hmm.
remember my daughter was like, I can't remember, 6 or 7 years old at that time we were watching it. She goes, "We can't watch it because Robin's not wearing any pants." It was just, she made that
Yep.
comment, and I was like, okay, that's
Yep.
true. You know,
Yep.
First of all, why would you put a boy in that type of show off the legs and stuff like that?
Yep.
But then again, I think they're going more of the theatrical look to them, like stage look and things like that. From that era.
Well, it's
So
iconic. I mean, we all know that the trick to drawing a character, to designing a comical character, is to make it look, from like it can be this big in your comic book, and you know exactly who that character is.
yeah,
And so, I mean, all the costumes we're making fun of here actually work in that respect, in that like you can see the Dazzler from, tiny little speck, a couple of little squiggly lines, and you know who it is. Same with Robin, same with a lot of the characters,
no,
and that
but
helps.
Robin was created in the '30s and around that time, and those type of costumes, like circus costumes, and he is a circus-based character, and
Yeah.
that fits the character. So I see why they did that, but some of the costumes, I mean, do we call it gimmick costumes because they're just there to sell, copies, to sell books and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably the case a lot of the time. It's just there to sell a book. But I don't know. So when you design TikTok Tom characters, like what did you think of? Like they sort of have costumes.
For the main character, honestly, I didn't even really think. I don't remember. I mean, it's going back way, way. I don't remember what I based the character costume on.
And he always has a
I mean,
t-shirt on, right?
yeah, later he put a t-shirt on. We put a t-shirt on. Early on, he had a costume where he had digital clock on his chest,
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
gloves, and belt, and everything like that. I think it was just going more towards, if I remember, more towards comics I grew up reading. More traditional superhero style comics and stuff like that. And again, it's I think look at I don't remember the exact story, but I think it's more just what influenced me from my times reading comics.
It's funny, I think about TikTok Tom, and I think in the past he had a lot of digital stuff, and then he went more analog.
Yeah, because later on you're just thinking, you know what, he doesn't need all that stuff.
Yeah, it's
Go
interesting.
go yeah, go back to old traditional ways.
I remember like flipping through some of the old ones, and it was almost exclusively digital stuff, like as clocks. Everything was very digitally. And then I'm wondering if maybe like even because digital watches sort of fell out of favor a little bit, and more
Yeah,
people, even if it's an Apple Watch, people prefer the sort of classic.
the analog look to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if like TikTok Tom sort of got a little taste of that too, where it's sort of the analog is just more visually more interesting than the digital.
Visually, it looks better.
Yeah.
Visually, it looks better on a page.
Yeah. I'll tell you, whenever I draw TikTok Tom, I always can't figure out what to put on his t-shirt. Often it's a bomb of some sort, or they're just the words boom.
Boom, that's it.
Those
So
that's
now here's a question for you. We talked about like, back costumes and stuff like that. Is there any costumes that stand out that you might say is one of the best costumes? I mean, you mentioned Spider-Man, so
yeah, Spider-Man is definitely up there because, and I love the way that they work it into the story. Like I do like a good costume that's sort of part of the story. Like there's a bit of an explanation. Even, I'll give the Flash's costume a bit of credit. They at least wrote that into it. Like it wasn't just like he just turned into the Flash. They actually sort of got into the whole comes out of his ring,
now,
chemically hits the air, expands and everything. But
one character I have to say, I like his costume, and even the changes they made and made him more military like looking fits the character and works for him is Captain America.
yeah, I mean, Captain America makes sense because the idea is supposed to be that he's not just, you know, he's not just this great military guy, but he's the representation of the American
That's
military.
it. Because they had regular boots on him, then they put the swashbuckler boots on him. Then later on they put like army boots type of approach to him. They even had belt buckles that looked like military belt buckles. But for a character like that, it worked.
Yeah, it's true.
The changes worked, but it wasn't. Even when they went over a little bit overboard, it fits the character.
If actually we should go back to bad costumes, the Hulk. How many pairs of pants did that guy go through?
Yeah, even that. The purple pants.
Yeah, there were some weird choices made.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, one of the things I talk about sometimes when I'm, talking, doing lectures or talking to other artists or young artists particularly, is I talk about color choices when it comes to your costumes for your characters. And one of the things that Disney does, and I sort of try and do it a little bit, but maybe not always, is primary colors for heroes, secondary colors for villains.
Oh, really? Okay.
So if you look at
Okay.
Disney villains, the bad guys are often purple, orange, uh, green. The good guys are generally red, blue, and yellow.
Okay. Oh, you just made me think of a character now. And I'm thinking villain wise. And it was it was one of the worst costumes I could think of. And Marvel, I don't did you ever read Secret Wars?
Yeah,
Secret Wars Beyonder?
I don't think
Remember
I
his
have.
costume?
I'm trying to think.
When
That was kind of lame.
Secret Wars 2, it was like he had like the 90s jumpsuit, and like I'm not joking, it looked like what's his name, MC Hammer type of jumpsuit.
Yeah, that was pretty. That was rough.
You're this omni, what do you call it, demigod or whatever you want to call himself, you know wearing a 80s 90s jumpsuit with Even the hairstyle, everything, it just was just bad.
It didn't really work. It's funny though, because I mean, I can make fun of it a little bit, but also I know how hard it is to come up with costumes for characters. It's like,
No, no, no. It's hard. It's hard to come up with costumes, but again, I want, but then again, comic industries like any other industry, they're going with the trends that are around at that time.
although I find that mostly comic books are not going for the trends that are around at that time, they're the trends that were around 5 years ago. Because comic book artists always seem to be just a little bit,
Little off. You're
a
right.
little
You're
off.
right.
It's
You're
like,
right.
oh, well, that was cool 5 years ago, but maybe not right now.
So I'm wondering on that, anyone that sticks up during the disco era
I mean,
character,
Dazzler
except for
was,
that, yeah, Dazzler was the main one. Yes,
yeah. I mean, and even like Polka Dot Man, he was pretty 70s.
70s. Yeah,
So there's a lot of, and I mean, there's a lot of characters out of the 70s and 80s. And to be honest, a lot of the 80s, like X-Men, looked like they came out of the 70s.
they did. They did. Yeah,
And that's just because, most of the time comic book artists are guys who sit
and
and have their morgue file that's, you know, out of
yeah,
date.
one character that went for a lot of changes with costume and a lot of them were misses was Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
A lot of them were misses because they were trying to do like a 70s, 60s style, dress and all that stuff. It did not work.
Yeah.
Either and I have to admit, her old traditional costume worked and her modern costume worked. Rest of the in between just were hit and miss.
I feel like they needed to study more, just keep it like Greco-Roman,
Yes,
old
that's it.
school, and
Yes.
stick with
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Just go with what that, like, you've got that, like, never change her Wonder Woman and let Diana Prince be the fashionista.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's how you make that work, but it just didn't. You're right. Whenever they change it, you're sort of like, the movies.
And I sorry.
The movies did it okay. Like the
Oh, the
modern,
movie costume was great. Oh,
yeah.
they were great. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, the TV show had moments.
So now we need to do a episode on hairstyles, like mullets and bold cuts and stuff like that. Because mullets, for a while, a lot of characters had mullets.
Because they're fun to draw.
And
Just ask Derek.
we need to get Derek Wharton on here for a mullet episode.
So I think we need to wrap this up, but I'm gonna offer one last good or bad costume for you, just you to decide, and you tell me, Gru.
I was about to bring that up. His cassette player thing. What the hell is that?
And also, like, is it just a skirt down there?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Does he wear pants or does he wear an underwear? What does he wear?
Exactly. So everybody, as we finish today off, ponder, go look at pictures of Gru and be like, what's going on down there?
Yeah, because for the longest time, I remember we used to joke that the blue thing on his thing is a Sony Walkman.
Kind of looks like one.
It does. It does. Okay, that's a great way to end this episode.
So, well, make sure to cosplay correctly, kids.
See you next time.